All right, welcome to another Great Outdoors Garage. Now, as I always say in my videos, like, comment, and subscribe because it's just a nice thing to do for me. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today, and this isn't actually the video I was going to film because the weather's gone downhill here, so I'm kind of stuck inside for the moment. But I wanted to talk about a question that I had, which was essential tools. What are the tools that you feel like need to be in your toolbox? And I got to thinking about it, and it really gets to be a difficult question because essential tool for what? I mean, am I working on a car? Am I building a house? What am I doing? So what I did is I split this down to the very, very basic tools. And I'm going to talk about this as if you're a beginner and you're just getting a few tools, trying to learn to work on stuff. And I want to say some things that, probably would have helped me out when I was, just getting started. And hopefully it'll help you out. And a lot of you out there aren't novices, and so you're probably just like, this video is boring, but maybe you'll find a couple of tidbits of information in it that'll be helpful to you. But I really like to talk to my beginners and try to encourage people. It's one of the things with this channel I want to do is encourage people to pick up tools and try to work on stuff. I don't care who you are, what your beliefs are or whatever about you. You can pick up tools and you can work on stuff. Even if you're not good at it, you can still try. And you'll develop skills with time. And a lot of it is developing, fine motor skills and being able to do weird motions with your hands and, put on a nut with only two fingers, down in some hole that you can't get to. That comes later. That's just something you have to learn. There's no way I can tell you how to do that. But I can talk about some of our basic tools that should be in everybody's toolbox. I don't care if you don't work on things. I don't care if you hate working on things. You can have an emergency in the middle of the night, and with just a few of these tools, you can fix it or fix something minor around your house. Now, we can get a few more tools on top of this, and then you can fix a lot of things. But this is where I would recommend anybody start. The first thing, a good Phillips screwdriver. Now, my granddad, he would be not too happy with me about that because he liked flat blades. This is a flat blade here. See, it's just got the one blade across it. Both of these have their uses, and both of them have their merits. The flat blades were good in the old-fashioned days. You just cut a slot across the screw, and you stick the screwdriver in that slot and, either remove or install the screw. But there's a problem. With this slot, this screwdriver does not self-center, meaning if I'm screwing in a screw, I can start out like this and very easily slip off this way or slip off that way. And so it becomes very annoying to try and remove a screw because you keep slipping off of the thing. And I've had incidences like that, and there's a spot you probably can't see on camera, but there's a spot right about there where I actually jabbed a screwdriver into my hand once because I slipped off of something. Luckily enough, it wasn't a bad injury, but these have that downside of, slipping off of things. But if you run into a flathead, that's what you're going to need. The other thing about a flathead screwdriver that makes it handy is it's a good little kind of sharp point there that you can use to, separate things or pry a little bit. A little bit is the key. It's not a pry bar, it's a screwdriver. So you can pry with them just a little bit, but don't get insane on them unless you plan on buying another flat blade. Now, the Phillips has a lot of advantages because with this cross point on it, I don't know if I can get enough light on that to see it almost. Well, you can kind of see it, but it's blurry. But anyway, you got this sort of cross-shaped point. It's like an X. And what that does, combined with that tapered shape, is that allows the screwdriver to self-center on the screw. And so that way, as you're screwing the screw in, you don't have a tendency to slip off of it. Like you can see there, it kind of wants to stay in line with the screwdriver. That's good. Now, here's the thing when it comes to Phillips as opposed to flat blade. And I think this is why Granddad hated the Phillips. He was dealing with bad Phillipses. There are good Phillipses and there are bad Phillipses. And I will tell you truthfully that the bad Phillipses are absolutely infuriating. Whether you've got a bad screwdriver or a bad screw, either one just makes you have a bad day. So here's the test of a Phillips screwdriver. It's a little bit hard to do one-handed. I still don't have anybody to help me film yet. And that probably will never happen. But see, look at this. That screwdriver, see, I can even rattle it around pretty good, and it stays in that Phillips head. This is not a magnetic screwdriver. This is a regular old plain Jane screwdriver. But it's a good quality screwdriver, and it fits right in that Phillips head. It's like I say, you can see me rattling it all around. That screwdriver doesn't quite want to fall out of there. The other key thing you should be able to do with a Phillips screwdriver is that right there. You should be able to have it horizontal, let go of the screw, and it should stay in that screwdriver, and you should even be able to move it around. You should even be able to tip it. Like, these are really good, because look at that. I can't believe that. This is not a magnetic screwdriver, and I just inverted that screw to where it's facing down. It should fall off. There we go. It finally fell off. These are great. These are dirt cheap, by the way, but I don't think I can tell you where I got them. Sorry. But anyway, Phillips and a flat blade, your two essential starter tools. After you get going, you want to have like a billion of these. And like, it's funny, these, I buy so many of them. There's probably 3 to 5 sets in this shop of those screwdrivers, because it's just handy to have them in each toolbox where I'm not losing them and running back and forth across the shop for them. Your next tool is a hammer. And particularly if you're a homeowner, you need a hammer. Do you need the most expensive hammer money can buy? No, you do not. You just need a decent hammer. And if you're starting out, one of the things I tell people is that tools are very, very personal. So everybody prefers something a little bit different in their tools. So there's no reason to go out and buy something super expensive to start with. Just buy you a decent, cheap hammer, and you'll have that and be able to learn and figure out what really works best for you. The next thing is these hammers, there's a curved claw and there's a straight claw. Those claws are essentially for pulling nails. I find it comes down to a matter of situation and preference, because I find sometimes I'm in a situation where I need the curved claw to get the nail to come out, and then other times I find that I can just pull the nail out really quickly with the straight claw. The curved claw gives you a little bit more leverage to pull a nail out, so that's an advantage there, but it's less convenient to work with this curve sometimes. It kind of gets in your way and causes problems, trying to get the nail back out of the hammer and stuff. So both types, just figure out which one you like. You don't need like big old rubber fancy handles. An old wooden handled hammer will do you just fine. The other thing is I mentioned about a hammer is this is like your first tool that can get you in a real bunch of trouble, because there are things you should be hitting with hammers and things you shouldn't be hitting with hammers. Most of the time, you shouldn't be hitting something with a hammer. The hammer should be, unless you're driving, like a nail, the hammer should be your absolute last resort, okay? So, like knocking something loose or bashing something apart, I try to use much more diplomatic forces, shall we say, until I get to the hammer. And the hammer brings me to my next point. A lot of times you're hammering on stuff and it can get noisy, especially like if you're doing brake work and you have an older car and it's got what's called a brake drum, and that brake drum is seized on. A lot of times you have to knock them loose with a hammer, but do not hit that brake drum until you put your earmuffs on, because it will hurt in your ears. They ring like the most shrill bell you've ever heard. So that brings me to the earmuffs. You've got two things here. You've got earmuffs and you've got earplugs. They both have their use and they both have their situation, which is why I have both. The earmuffs are great just to put on over your ears real quick and work on something for a minute and then whip back off, and I'm back to just doing my normal thing. So I can have them there when I need them, put them on, pull them off real quick. It's not a big ordeal, but these do not provide as much hearing protection as the earplugs do. Okay, the earplugs actually give you more ear protection. I was surprised when I learned about it first too. because you'd think this covers the whole ear and this just plugs it, but the plug is actually better than the earmuff. And you can actually combine these two for even extra hearing protection in a really, really loud environment. These I like to use when I'm doing something like riding the tractor, because the tractor I've got is very, very loud. And so I can put these in my ears. It's hard for like a tree branch to come along and hit me upside the head and knock them off. I can put my hat on if it's a hot day so I can keep the sun off my head. Whereas these, I can't put my hat on. Tree branches are going to be knocking them off. And they're just going to, in general, try to fall off my head while I'm out there working, bouncing around on the tractor. So situation kind of dictates what works best where. Now, as far as earmuffs and earplugs are concerned, I will tell you, if you think you need them, you absolutely need them. If you're doing something and you think you don't need them, you need them. If it's any kind of thing loud or any kind of bashing noise or anything, hearing loss is cumulative, okay? And you do not get it back. So once you lose it, it's gone. And so what can happen is, and I did this myself, I used a lot of machines that might have been a little bit loud, and I didn't think they were that loud at the time, but I started noticing, hey, wait a minute, after I get off my old lawnmower, I'm not hearing quite so well. And then that's what finally made me realize, hey, you need to be putting your earplugs on anytime you get on the lawnmower, anytime you get on the tractor. I would say anybody who has young children around in a shop, get earplugs on them, get earmuffs on them. Almost anything that's mildly loud, using an impact wrench, anything. Try to protect your children's hearing as much as possible, because like I say, it goes away and it doesn't come back. There is another real downside to not using hearing protection. You can develop a condition that is known as tinnitus, which is commonly diagnosed as like a ringing or a buzzing in the ears. And luckily enough, I only get it just sometimes. But I have known of prominent actors. There was an actor on a certain very popular science fiction show, and there was an accident one day on set, and a loud noise happened right near him, and he got tinnitus. And the ringing in his ears was so bad, it was literally driving him insane and sadly making him suicidal. So tinnitus is no joke. Don't play that game. Put your earplugs on. Just be safe. The other thing is eye protection. This is another biggie. Eye protection. And this one is not quite as bad as the hearing protection, but still, if you think you need it, put it on. Particularly another thing I would note, and this is something a lot of people don't think about, and I didn't think about at first, because I used to have to wear glasses, and so I kind of had a little bit of built-in protection there. Although glasses are not safety glasses, people. Safety glasses are safety glasses. If you wear reading glasses or bifocals or whatever, like you're seeing glasses that you have to wear all the time, they are not safety rated. Do not trust them for safety ratings, okay? But if you're getting under a car or under a house or something, probably just go ahead and put on a pair of safety glasses, because there can always be debris falling, and literally that debris can be anything. I mean, it could be a piece of fiberglass insulation, and you just don't want that in your eye. Just believe me, you just don't want that. Now, as far as quality, what should I be buying? Safety glasses? Be sure it's a good, SFI rated pair. The SFI is the government agency that makes sure products are actually safe, or at least that's what they're supposed to do. So be sure it's got an SFI rating on it. But unless you're doing something really hardcore, like you're just doing grinding and different stuff around your shop, a cheapo pair will work great. And the thing is, like, you look at these and you can already see on camera, they're messy. They're just going to get destroyed anyways. That's the whole idea. You destroy these instead of destroying your eyes. So cheapos will work great. And, use them when you feel like you need to use them. But and you'll, it's one of those things, you get used to it, but just be very careful with that. And, it's PPE is very important. Personal protective equipment is what this is called. Now, the next thing you need is a good tape measure. And you just need a good tape measure. It's a mandatory tool. I wanted to show you, I like this one because you can see it's got the scale there on the front side, but also if I flip it over, you can see the scale on the back side. Now, what I don't understand is I have heard there are people that don't know how to read tape measures. I don't understand that. There it is right there. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches. And then the modern tape measures are even really nice because a lot of them actually give you the fractions down here. So you don't have to count your little, tick marks up here to find out, what your fraction is. So tape measures are not hard to read, and these modern ones make it really easy for you. This one here is really old. I've had it for a long, long time. So that's kind of your essential core group of tools that you should have if you're just starting out, no matter what you're doing. I don't care whether it's working on cars, working on your house, just trying to take care of DIY projects. This is where you start. Your next thing, probably if you're working on a house, is going to be a good crosscut wood saw. I don't have an example of one of those here, but you can find those anywhere, so I don't really think I need to show you that. But if I'm working on cars, this isn't going to cut it. The very next thing I need is a good socket set. Socket, ratchet, and wrench set. Now this set here may look like there's some sockets missing. They're not. I just need to clean them, and I haven't cleaned them, put them back in the box yet. You will not find a socket set like this anywhere else. Why? Because I've built this one over the years and just added sockets to it as I went. And I added the sockets that I wanted to it, the style I wanted and everything like that. Like these deep well type sockets, these really long ones. I really like these because they give me something extra to grab onto as I'm wrenching. And they work really well for, of course, long bolts and everything like that. So a lot of times I'll grab these before I grab the standard short style socket. These standard short style sockets are good, but I find they don't give me much to grab onto while I'm trying to work and everything. And they can be kind of awkward and a pain to work with. But they're great when I'm in a situation like I was on that minivan where I had the frame rail here and the engine here, and there wasn't enough room to get a ratchet with a full deep well socket in there, so I had to use the short ones. So building a socket set. Now, that's something I've thought about a lot over the past couple of nights as I was getting ready to make this video. There's a lot of these companies you can go to and they'll sell you, the 250-piece mechanic socket set or whatever like that, or the 500-piece mechanic socket set. Couple of problems there. First off, they don't know what you're working on. Secondly, I find that those sets will skip sizes. Like say, they'll, instead of going like, if they're metric 13, 14, 15, they'll go 13, 15 and skip the 14. Or maybe they'll skip the 13 or the 12 or whatever some jerk decided they needed to skip. And when I say jerk, I mean that wholeheartedly, because I find that whoever that person was that decided to skip that socket, that's the exact socket I needed. And so the entire kit is worthless to me because it doesn't have the one socket I needed in it. So I'm going to take a different approach. I was thinking about it, and I think if I was going to start a new, socket set, like if somehow I lost this one, which would make me very sad, if I was going to start a new socket set, I would not buy one of those umpteen mini-piece mechanics tool sets. What I would do is I would go and I would buy the sockets individually. Because actually, when I look at this kit now, a lot of the sockets have been replaced in it. And they've been replaced with sockets that I bought basically in their own little kit. Like this row of deep well sockets here was its own little kit. All of these standard sockets here were their own kit. These metric sockets here, their own kit. It's a good way to be able to easier read on the package and make sure they're not skipping sizes on you, but it's also a way you can get the exact sockets you want. This kit originally came with 12-point sockets in it. Ones like these back here. See, it's just got the little bumps in it. Those are your 12 points. What is better in many situations is a 6-point socket like this here. You can see that actually matches the hex head on the bolt. Generally speaking, it's better to have a 6-point socket than a 12-point. A lot of companies will sell you a 12-point. 12 points are good, and you can get along with them very, very well, but they're easier to strip a fastener with, meaning I strip the head off the bolt, and then I have to figure out how to get the bolt out without the proper ability to remove it, which can be a real problem. So I really recommend getting the 6-point sockets. Now, if you go to one of them 240 piece or whatever mechanics tool sets, everything in it's going to be a 12-point socket. And that's why you see some 12-point sockets here. These are kind of the stragglers left over from that kit that was bought many, many years ago. So definitely, I would think in the future, if you're going to build yourself a socket set, do two things. Buy a good ratchet, buy a good breakover bar, and then just start buying sockets as you need them. Buy the sizes you need and buy the style you need. It's going to make your kit a lot better. Now, when I say style you need, there's style you need and there's style you want. A socket set and setting up a ratchet system and everything, how you're going to stack it up, what extenders am I going to use? What socket am I going to use on the end of this extender? What type of ratchet am I going to use? Those are all individualistic things. And I find that everybody I work around does it differently. And it even goes so far as like me and one of my brothers. We will set up the ratchet and socket assembly differently between the two of us because it's just what's comfortable for you. So it's one of those things you have to find out, do I like the deep wells? Do I like the short sockets? What really works for me? The other thing about these deep wells I wanted to mention, there are some companies that when they do a deep well, they only recess the hex part of it in about as far as it would normally be, so about that far. So when you're buying deep wells, look for ones like these where the hex goes all the way back like that, because if that hex doesn't go back, that deep well just hits the end of the screw and the whole thing becomes, like the whole assembly becomes this long when you pull it out instead of that screw sliding up into that deep well like it should. I find those deep wells to be completely useless. It negates the point of the deep well, not actually having the socket pattern all the way down into it. So that's another quick note about deep wells. And then of course you can have you get 12-point deep wells as well as the 6-point deep wells. Now the one final thing I would say about 12-point versus 6-point. Why do we have those two categories? Well, I have 12-point so that I can turn the socket just a little bit and kind of reposition myself. That's useful if I've got like a solid wrench, meaning I don't have a ratchet where I can just ooch that ratchet over a little bit and get in position like I want to. That's kind of the downside of the 6-point. The other small downside of the 6-point is I have occasionally seen special 12-point headed bolts, and in which case you do need a 12-point socket for those. So they're just kind of things you'll run into, or maybe you won't. I haven't seen one of those 12-point bolts in a long time, but they're out there. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I think this will be the final thing I'm going to mention today, is ratchets. And this is a big point of contention for me in a toolbox, is a good ratchet. Now, what makes a good ratchet versus a bad ratchet? Well, I'll tell you, both of these ratchets are actually really good. I like them. I've used this one for many, many years. I haven't used this one quite as long, but it's a good ratchet. But here's the thing. These are two great ratchets for me to show you the example on this. If I listen to this, now listen to this. Notice they're both different. Now, these are both good ratchets, like I say. They click and turn real easy. This one's a little bit more clunky, but this is a coarser ratchet than this one is. This is a finer ratchet. And what I mean is the ratcheting device inside this ratchet has more teeth than this ratchet. That has its upsides and its downsides. One thing, I can move this ratchet just a little bit. This one, I have to move it a little farther before it clicks. That can be kind of an issue, but the main thing I find with these coarser ratchets is they generally don't turn over quite so easy as the finer ratchets. And that becomes an issue when I'm trying to ratchet a bolt out. If that ratchet is too stiff, meaning that ratchet mechanism doesn't turn freely enough, it will stop ratcheting before the bolt is actually finger loose. And so you're going along ratcheting, pulling your bolt out, and then it just stops, and then you're just wiggling the bolt back and forth, and you're not actually loosening it anymore. And you take the ratchet off, and you think, well, I'll just grab it with my hand. You got to turn it with your hand. You're like, I can't turn this with my hand. And if you're in some confined spot or out in the sun and just trying to get something done, that becomes a real problem real quick. And believe you me, I have had ratchets before that did not ratchet easily. It's worth noting you will not find any of those ratchets in my shop anymore. They have mysteriously disappeared for some reason. Now, I can tell you the exact reason why. It's because I hated them. So my big piece of advice to you, I don't care what brand of ratchet you buy. If it's not in a package, when you go into the store, if it's not in a package where you can rotate it over and feel that it's got a good soft click to it, go to a different store, find a different ratchet. Test them before you buy them. Either that or be prepared to try and return them and get your money back, which you probably won't be able to do. They'll probably just want to give you another ratchet. And it'll be another ratchet of the same brand that sucks and drives you crazy. One other thing I wanted to mention, fine ratchets versus coarse ratchets. The fine ones are supposed to be easier to break. I can tell you I've broke one ratchet, and it was not even the ratchet mechanism in that ratchet that broke. It was actually the snout broke off of it. And that was actually the predecessor to this ratchet here. I actually warrantied that ratchet. This being a fine ratchet, I have abused this. I mean, these are my big 1/2-inch size ratchets. These get abused. I put way more torque to them than you should ever put on a ratchet. It's one of those do as I say, don't do as I do kind of situations. But I really have abused these ratchets, and they've held up really quite well. So that's kind of the thing you really want to look for there. And I can't stress enough, you want a ratchet with a good, smooth, light click. Anyway, I've gone on for about as far as I think I can go on in this video, and I'm pretty sure that you're probably ready to move on to the next video, and hopefully we'll have a nice surprise coming soon in these videos. So remember, like, comment, subscribe.